Let's talk about high fence hunting while we light some bonfires. This is totally legal. I got permits and everything. So about a month ago, I went to Texas on a high fence black buck hunt. And if I'm honest, I didn't know how I was gonna feel about it. Like from I'm a hunter, I'm a bow hunter, ethical standpoint. Like, is it sporting? There was just a lot of, there was kind of a lot of mental gymnastics that I had to go through in order to say yes to the hunt. And I don't know why. Before we get started, I want to define what a high fence hunt is not. Okay, if we're talking about a facility that has like a huge density of animals and they're having a hard time feeding them, or a tiny little space where it feels like they're in cages, that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about like Joe Exotic, which if you haven't seen the show Tiger King yet, that's who I'm talking about. We're not talking about like a Joe Exotic high fence hunting operation, which I know that those exist. We're not talking about those. Those are crap. Those should not be around. What we're talking about is something like the place that I went to. It was a family-run spot that the grandpa wanted something for his kids to have, for them to come to spend time with him and build something for the future, build a small business for their family to live on. That's what I'm talking about. And it doesn't matter the size. What I'm talking about is the ethics and the way the animals are actually treated on the facility while they're alive. By the way, if I light on fire, like if something lands on me, just tell me. Let me talk through some of the things that were good about the place that I was at. One of the stories they told was one of the animals ended up having a broken antler that they could tell was getting infected. So they sought that animal out, they tranquilized the animal, they came in, they cut the horn the rest of the way off, and then they gave it medicine, got it better, and then the next year the animal was back up and running, totally fine, totally healthy. That would never happen in nature, obviously. That is a good thing from we're going to manage the resources that we have decided to put on this place. Another good thing is with all the high fence, the predators that were getting inside were extremely minimal. They said that they had issues with coyotes on occasion, but there was a big focus on trapping and keeping hogs and keeping coyotes, and I don't think they'd ever had any issues with mountain lions on the place. So the predation that was on the land was extremely small. The premium genetics that they were selecting to put into these animals, and I guess this is a question. Is that a good thing or is it a bad thing? Because what they were selecting for was healthy animals that made amazing antlers and does that would throw off good amounts of babies. So I guess that this could be kind of either way, because obviously we're interfering with nature when it comes to that part of it, but I don't know. That could be a good thing or a bad thing, I think. At this place, it was obvious though that what they wanted to create and what they were trying to create was a healthy population of animals that were appealing for people to come down and hunt when they reached a certain age. There was a doe that came in one day that had a tag on her ear, and she looked old as dirt. And I asked how old she was, and she was 13. So they had this doe for that long breeding. And in the wild, what's the likelihood of that happening? Like, extremely, extremely small. At this one facility, they had ibex, they had aoudad, they had elk, they had stag, they had black buck, they had whitetail, they had axis. Like, just this plethora of animals that you're never going to see in one place at one time. So from a kind of a consumer standpoint, it was super cool to be able to show up to a place like that and then interact with and see all these different animals in one facility. I think about my uncle who has MS, and he's a big hunter, And early on, before the MS started getting bad, he was getting up into the stands, he was out hiking, he was hunting, the traditional way that I think most people think about hunting. A little more spot and stalk. But now it's gotten bad enough that he can't do that. What he can do is stay in the lodge, ride in the UTV, climb into the stand, and make a great shot on an animal because he's still got those skills with the rifle. So from a wounded warrior aspect, from an age aspect, probably somebody who's in their 70s isn't going to be going elk hunting the way that I think, again, a lot of people are traditionally thinking about elk hunting. There's value in that. I think that there's value provided because a lot of the time people earn their income later in life after they've worn their bodies out, earning that income, and don't necessarily have that opportunity. By the way, the tree that's next to, we want that to die, and it's gonna die. Let's talk about the bad. I think the risk that facilities have is overcrowding, for sure. Like underfeeding and overcrowding, because if you just let the animals kind of do their thing, they're obviously going to breed. Everyone that's born, they're putting a price tag on, and they're thinking, oh, that's $1,000 X, or a $2,000 this, or a $5,000, or a $10,000. And so I think that there's kind of a propensity maybe to potentially get things out of line where you're not feeding them as correctly as you should be. Oh, that's perfect. The wind is now shifted and it's blowing ash in our direction. I think the next one is something like CWD. The ability to spread disease in these populations is obviously huge, and I think anybody that would say that that's not likely is discounting just a basic understanding of put a large amount of animals in one area that are feeding off of similar sources like feeders where they're actually putting their mouths to it. That's how you spread disease. Like, we're all finding that stuff out right now with the COVID stuff, but with deer, we've known that the way CWD spreads is contact. And when you have a huge density of animals, if something happens, you're going to infect a whole lot of animals, and I think that that's obviously a big risk with high fence operations. I understand this one less, and I don't know why this one is as important to me or more important than the rest of them. Get people that show up that have never hunted before, that borrow a buddy's rifle, and then kill a 250-inch whitetail that you're not finding those in the wild. Get to put it on their wall and get to call themselves a hunter. And I don't know why that bothers me, but it just feels like cheating when you do that. I wouldn't have an issue if the person had it on their wall and said, I went to a place for a corporate retreat and it was so cool. It was, this type of thing, and this is how I got it. But you know that there's people that are out there that are like, yeah, I did this. I'm a hunter, big time hunter. It cheapens that for the rest of us that are willing to go put in the time doing harder hunts. But why do I care about that? Like, that's kind of a selfish thing for me, I feel like. I don't know. That's one that I struggle with most of all, because what I'm doing there is I'm comparing the way I feel to the way I feel like someone else should feel about what they're doing. And I don't get to make that decision. I use a compound bow. I know that there are people that use trad bows, and then there are people that use 300 Win Mags to go out and shoot stuff at 1,000 yards. And I know that there are guys that use bows that feel like guys that use guns are cheating. So of course they're gonna feel like high fence is cheating. We all use some piece of technology to kill these animals. It's so important for me to feel like I earned the animal. But why is it important for me to tell others to have that same experience, or to hope that others are having that same experience? I know that there are guys that show up that go buy a DIY tag, they don't shoot their bows all year long, and then they're driving to the site that they're gonna hunt, they see an elk, they get out, they walk 200 yards, they shoot the elk, they put the elk in the car, and they're great hunters. Like, we all know that that happens. So again, why do I get to decide how anyone else should feel about their interaction with animals? But I do. I really care about it, because I think that there's value in these animals, and not money value. One of the things that bothers people is watching hunting videos and seeing guys make a shot and then victory, like this, yes! And they don't understand. They're not cheering because they killed something. They're not cheering for death. They're cheering because they have set a goal that is so difficult to achieve, and they have finally achieved that goal. I don't know what it's gonna feel like when I finally kill an elk with a bow. It is a goal that I have set for myself, and I have gone multiple years now in a row and I have not achieved that goal. But I know that feeling when it occurs is going to be overwhelming and complicated. And I want everyone to experience that. And I worry that high fence cheapens it. But it didn't for me. I think the question is, will I high fence hunt again? And the answer is yes. Yeah, I will. Will my feelings change over time? Maybe. They might. And they may change as I get to do it more and go to different facilities and see what those facilities are run like. Maybe I had a unique experience at the place that we were at, where I felt like the care that they had given those animals and the respect that they paid those animals, I got to benefit from. And I appreciated it for what it is, and I also understand what it's not. I don't know, let me know what you guys think. I know reading comments on other YouTube videos where guys were doing high fence hunting and they didn't really acknowledge it in the videos, they were getting lit up in the comments. And again, we all have these interesting little standards, these interesting little benchmarks that we have made where we have said, I wouldn't do that. Oh, that's shooting fish in a barrel. I wouldn't want to do it that way. But where do we draw that line? And where do you draw the line? And I'm curious to know the argument, because again, I'm not saying that I have the answers for this. I'm just telling you how I felt after going to a place that honestly the animals that we were hunting won. I don't know, let me know in the comments what you guys think. Thanks for watching. I'm Brandon McDonald. I'm also gonna sit out here for about the next 2 hours and just drink and watch this fire.